Hello and welcome to the Discover Virginia Beach podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Trahan, your tour guide to the Virginia Beach area. If this is your first time listening, I am so glad you found this show. Each week, I publish a new interview with locals ranging from musicians, government officials, CEOs, artists, and much more. And my aim is simple. It's to help you discover, define, and then go out and do exactly what you're looking for during your next vacation, relocation, or outing to the Virginia Beach area. And if you're looking to join in on the conversation, take part in monthly giveaways, and get your hands on my custom event calendars, head on over to Facebook and send me a friend request. That's Joseph Trahan. And check out my Facebook group of nearly 50,000 fans of the Virginia Beach area. Don't worry about writing anything down. The links for each episode, along with the Facebook groups, will be in the description below and also in the show notes. All right, here's the show. Today, I am so pumped because we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, real estate. But not just any real estate, commercial real estate. The kind where you buy a building, you sell Graham's secret recipe of jams and jellies that make you a boatload of money. But of course, before you get started through that process, you have to set off on this adventure on the right foot by talking to a professional, a commercial real estate developer, or someone that knows the commercial real estate realm. So I'm super excited to introduce you all today to Nicole Campbell, the Assistant Vice President of Office Leasing and Sales for Divaris Real Estate Incorporated here in Virginia Beach. Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Look, I just want to first say to you that what you do is amazing. I've seen your past episodes. You're awesome. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're super pumped to chat with you today. So I understand you've had quite a journey from, residential real estate in North Carolina and Virginia to commercial real estate here in Virginia Beach. What brought you to the area and what, led you to decide to, say yes to Virginia Beach and build your life and your business here?
That's a great question. And I don't know if you've heard of the military or not. That's how we got here, but it's not the military you would expect. My husband was in the Army and we were stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I think they've renamed that recently to Fort Liberty. We were there. He got an assignment to work at Oceana. And then we were able to move here in 2014. So it's not a usual story that you would hear from folks in the Army. We don't usually get this kind of amazing place as an assignment, but that's what brought us here. And then I had been working in North Carolina as I kind of worked my way up from a transaction coordinator. And then I left there as a director of marketing and sales for a new construction team. And I was working in residential real estate, doing new construction stuff, got to Virginia Beach and saw that there was opportunity here as well in residential real estate. But it was kind of funny stepping away from the more behind the scenes as the director of sales and marketing and getting more out there just on my own and being an agent and taking people through houses. It was really cool. But the decision-making process for folks, as you know, when they're buying a house, it can be so emotional. To the point where, the emotion is they walk into a house and somebody's a Steelers fan and they're not, and then they choose not to buy the house because the current owner is a Steelers fan. So that type of decision-making process didn't really align with my personality. And I discovered just commercial real estate in passing, and Divaris Real Estate in 2016 had this role as just an administrative assistant. And I thought, I could learn commercial real estate because it's very, very different. I knew enough to know that commercial real estate was nothing like residential real estate. I had no idea what it was like, but I thought, well, this is a way for me to get paid to work behind the scenes and learn the business. And that's how I got started.
Wow, that is an incredible journey, especially considering that most people in the Army get stationed in some desert or in some hole in the ground for 6 months, and it's not the most enjoyable process. Speaking from experience, because my not personal experience, but my dad is in the Army right now and has had some very interesting placements, to say the least.
Yeah.
So I'm super glad that the Army brought you all to North Carolina and then, of course, to Virginia Beach because it's such a beautiful and wonderful area to discover for both, the military and also the civilian life as well. I'm sure there's a lot of sailors out there who may have gotten stationed here originally to Norfolk or Norfolk, and they're like, what does this place has to offer? And I'm super excited to, hopefully they see this episode or find out sooner rather than later just how incredible a place it is. So, Nicole, you decided that, real estate was too gray. It was more black and white, when it comes to commercial real estate, more, less emotions, more just, does the money make sense? Before we dive into real estate, I have to ask you, do you ever miss North Carolina?
I miss the real North Carolina barbecue.
That's fair. That's fair.
They do a pretty good job here. I have to say we're close enough to the border. But not really so much. I love Virginia Beach. I love everything. I love having a little 5-minute bubble and then a 10-minute bubble. And then in 20 minutes, I'm at the airport. So there's not much I miss about North Carolina.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't tend to make that drive too often. I know some folks have talked about it before. But yeah, there's a little bit of paradise there and a lot of paradise here. Sorry, North Carolina, we got more. Well, Nicole, I understand, you and your husband both come from an Army veteran background. And of course, we appreciate your service and your commitment to our country. I'm curious for you, are there any skills that stand out to you that you learned during your military career that were essential for you to have when you transition into the business and commercial real estate world?
Well, I think going from just being a problem solver, you don't get to have that aspect of the military the entire time you're in. Usually you start off with somebody just tells you what to do, but eventually you get to a point, and where I was when I left the Army was that I started to be able to come up with solutions for things. And so just seeing the process and how to solve a problem and then use that in my everyday life. And so I've used that with every position and every career that I've tried. And so I'll have to say from the time, because I got out of the Army back in 2000, it's been a long time. And I had a luxury of being an Army spouse and being able to try a bunch of different things and before I landed on what I do now. And so Sure. I got more out of being an Army spouse, honestly, because adaptability, just having flexibility, things like that, and not getting in the way of myself, because essentially I just had to figure out what I was going to do every time we went someplace new. So I really learned a lot from that I've been able to put into my career today.
Yeah, absolutely. Adaptability is definitely one of those key elements of any business. And of course, when you're touring a house and someone sees a Steelers flag, gotta be able to convince them it's not the worst thing. Does not have to convey with the property, right?
Right.
Seller to remove at buyer's request immediately.
Right, exactly.
Oh man, I love it. Well, Nicole, let's talk business. So you're currently at Divaris Real Estate Incorporated. Would you mind talking about your role, the services you offer, and of course, for the folks that are interested, where you're specifically located?
Yes. So I have two different main roles that I have in my business. And one of them is as a landlord representative, which is somebody who works for what it sounds like a landlord who has an office building and has office space to lease. And so I work with them to do the marketing, find tenants, negotiate deals for them, and get tenants in their buildings. And then the second part of it is as a tenant representative. So on the other side of it, for business owners who are looking for office space or flex space is a warehouse with an office, those types of properties, then I help them find the location, negotiate a letter of intent, negotiate a lease, make sure that all the terms are beneficial to them, and then help them get into that space. So those are the two main aspects of my business. I also help people buy and sell, the acquisition side of things, but I do focus a lot on the leasing. And I'm located in Virginia Beach. That's where my office is, in Virginia Beach Town Center, which is an amazing place because it's walkable. I was just at Sushi today for lunch. I walked right over there and had, oh my gosh, I love this place. So I have my office here, but I also drive a lot. And so I have properties all over Hampton Roads, including Hampton, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, all over the place. So my office is also on the road. like anywhere my properties are anywhere my tenants need me to take them. So that type of thing. So I'm in the office maybe 50% of the time doing, back end work. And then the rest of the time I'm out and about.
The sweet life of real estate. Always on the road, always making things happen. And of course, leveraging our skills of making things sound way easier than they actually are. Hence your description of your job, because for those listening, it sounds easy, but then it's like, oh my gosh, that's like 8 different things.
Right.
And you only work, 80 hours a week. So it's hard to spread it out. Nicole, I understand you started back in 2018, correct, with Divaris?
So I actually started in 2016 with them, just on the transaction management side.
Okay.
And then in 2018, 2019 is when I got into brokerage. So I felt like I had finally learned enough after several years of seeing all the behind the scenes. It was great because I got to listen to conversations that the brokers were having around me. I got to ask questions. I got to, fill out the documents and prepare documents and things like that behind the scenes first. And then I was able to team up with another broker in my office. So Krista Costa, who's been in the business for over 20 years, she and I teamed up. And that was the other huge thing. Like I could not have done it just out on my own at all. So that's getting into brokerage it was very scary. It was very overwhelming because it's one thing to sit at your desk all day long and do the behind the scenes work, but then to go out there and then have to talk to people and find new business and, do all the things that come along with it. That was just a whole new process for me. So, it's been a long ride. I can't believe now it's been like I'm in my 5th year in brokerage. So it's been great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so Nicole, during that training time, you mentioned that there was this overwhelming nature to the position, to the job, because in a lot of ways, the buck stops with you, right? The deal can live or die based upon the way you word things and the way in which you position your offer. Can you take us back to maybe a moment or a story that you have in your mind about an event, a negotiation, or something along the lines that really kind of tested your problem-solving skills that, put it to the test?
Sure. So one of the most recent examples I have of that is I was working with a group called Warrior's Heart. They're a company out of Texas who was looking to purchase property for their rehab site for veterans and first responders. They have a location in Texas near San Antonio. They wanted to open a place in Virginia. And so I'd been helping them look for locations, and we found something off market. And it ended up being probably the most stressful time of my life. And this wasn't even anything to do with the negotiation part of it, because all of that was a lot too, because we were dealing with somebody who wasn't necessarily, at first they didn't even want to sell the property. And so there was a lot that went on there. But then we finally got down to it and we were at closing day. And my clients were going to Richmond to be able to do all the closing documents and everything there, because the properties in Milford, Virginia. So they wanted to be as close to Milford when they got done closing so that they could leave straight away and get to the property.
Had they seen it prior to that?
They had seen it prior. They had been there a ton of times, and they just knew that Richmond, they flew into Richmond from Texas. We wanted to close there. And so we have an office, the Divaris Real Estate office there. It was a Friday afternoon. And so as you can imagine how Fridays go.
The best closing day in the world, right? Friday afternoons.
Exactly. And I think that day there was probably a holiday coming up on the next week. And so we would close early. And so the office closed down. It was me and my clients. I've never worked in this office before. And something came up where the attorney needed a specific signature on a document. And I had to figure out, oh my gosh, it was the craziest thing. So I'm trying to figure out how to log into the computer, how to log into the printer, because it's a separate system, just all this stuff. And I mean, long story short, we figured it out. But in those moments, I'm not going to lie, I was sweating because I was like, if I don't get this done and I can't make this happen. Oh, you know what I did? I called the IT guy. That was the best part about it, is that our IT guy that we had on staff answered my call at like 4:00 on a Friday afternoon, the Friday before a holiday. Wow. And if I hadn't thought to just like just calm down, it's going to be fun. We're going to figure it out, and have him walk me through it. then things wouldn't have happened and they wouldn't have been able to close. We would have had to wait the next week. And, as when the funding's coming in, it's not just, you can just put this on hold and do it on Monday. It was a whole thing. They flew in. They
And just have a lump sum of cash sitting
right,
around at
exactly.
a bank. Yeah.
So it was exciting and it was nerve wracking. And I definitely had to just look past the, freak out moment
Sure.
and get to the point where, okay, let's make a phone call and know who's going to be able to help me out through this. So, but I almost feel like, and you probably see this too, it's almost every day you have to overcome something and get over some hump, right? And just figure out what are your resources, who do you need to call, who do you need to talk to, because we can't do everything all ourselves. We're only as good as, what we are good at, but then you have to surround yourself with all these other amazing people. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, real estate in general, you're the middle person, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not the decision maker necessarily, but you are the facilitator to the decisions actually taking place. Barring any, threatening emails from attorneys, you can get most things done most of the time, right?
Right.
Nicole, I really appreciate you sharing that story. I'm curious for you, and of course, if you can't disclose that, that's totally fine. But I work in the residential world. Average home price 350, 400K. That's the most amount of money to an average Joe like me. For you, Nicole, being in the commercial space, I'm sure you deal with a sizable amount of properties. Do you mind me asking what's the most expensive property you've ever worked on and brokered and possibly sold or at least listed?
Well, so that was the most expensive by far. And it's even in the whole scheme of things. So that was a $7 million purchase.
That deal right there, the one
Yes.
where all the pressure was on and the
Yes.
IT guy, that was $7 million.
Yeah. So a $7 million purchase. But I would just say on the day to day, most of my income comes from leasing. And
Sure.
so that's, $5,000 here on a commission, but you get paid differently. So at a closing, the funds are there right away. On the leasing side of things, you maybe get paid half up front and then half whenever they start paying rent. So it's split up and you have to wait for landlords to pay you. Sometimes you have to call them and remind them that your invoice is sitting there. So you become a bill collector. And so it's not like you're not getting funds right away as soon as the deal is done. So that's the other part of it, is just there's so many things in the funnel and in the works that you're not going to have that $7 million sale all the time. And that took, by the way, I was working with them for 2 years. So 2 years worth of working with them to get to that point. And in the meantime, I'm having to supplement with, all these smaller deals in between. So there are people in my office on the investment sales side of things, I will say, that they work on these huge deals, like millions of, like 20 million, 30 million, things like that. That's not what I do, unfortunately.
That's okay. They're too busy. So those of you listening who want to make a deal, just call Nicole, because all those guys are too busy. Yeah. And that's so funny having chased a landlord.
Yeah,
it's unfortunately landlords get a bad rap, but it's like, you're just because you're the landlord doesn't mean you can't pay your rent. But I know none of your clients do that. That's just collectively landlords in general.
Totally. Yeah. Just speaking in generalities.
Absolutely. And speaking of the landlord leasing side, would you mind diving in with us, perhaps, if we could get an idea of what an average day looks like for you in the leasing side of things? What does what typical processes do you do, and what type of services do you specifically offer to someone looking to partner with you to say, hey, Nicole, I want you to help me, market this property to get ready to go, considering, everything that goes into it.
Right. So great question. On that side of things, usually I'll end up meeting with the landlord at the property first. And so it's either just me or somebody from my team. So like I said, I have Krista Costa. I also have Rachel Salaski on my team as well. So we'll go in together or separately, meet with the landlord, walk through the property, see what are the challenges, what are the good things about it, how can we actually bring value? And if we can, great, we'll let them know what value we can bring. If not, if we feel like, maybe you already have somebody good on your team, maybe it's not something that even we want to take on. And so we're kind of interviewing them at the same time as well.
Sure.
We want to make sure that if they have something that is going to need a lot of work, just to be able to make it where it looks good to tour and that it's not going to turn people off by walking through the door. And we say, we think you're going to have to put some money into this. If they're like, I don't want to do that. It just, we want to make sure that we're working with people who are going to take our advice, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So you go through that process. So it's kind of like a listing agreement or a listing appointment with on the residential side of things, walking through and seeing how everything looks. And then from there, we have a marketing team at Divaris Real Estate after the listing signed, and we do a bunch of some flyers. We have our system is called CoStar, which is the back end version of the database that a lot of people see when they're searching is LoopNet. So those two sites are connected. CoStar, LoopNet, there's other process or other systems out there as well that we put all of our marketing information on, get the sign up, and then we start calling prospective tenants who we think would be a good fit based on what the space looks like, where it's located, how it's configured, all those types of things. And we start calling those folks. We start calling other brokers in our market to let them know that the space is available and why they need to bring their tenants there, because that's an important relationship as well. And just from there, we keep it going. I'll tell you, I don't know if you've heard, but office is not too sexy right now.
Yeah, something about a worldwide pandemic, and then,
Yeah.
people couldn't rent and businesses decided to work from home. Tell us more.
Yeah. So that's been interesting, but we still have in Hampton Roads a pretty substantial market for office product. We still have people who never left the office. They never went home, or if they did, they came back right away. And it's a little bit because it has to do with the military, the people who work with the military, the government contractors, that type of thing. And just we're a little more insulated because we didn't have these 50-story high-rise buildings
Right.
where thousands of people flood into one elevator, and they weren't worried about that so much. So we've been a little insulated from that. I'm not going to say it's been fantastic this year. Next year, we feel like it's going to be down a little bit more.
Sure.
So it's really just educating people who think they may need office space or think they may need to downsize. Maybe they think they don't need it anymore at all. Like, how do we work with those folks to say, well, if you need an office to be able to make sure that your business succeeds, what does that look like? And
Right.
maybe it's not the same today as it was 4 years ago. It's probably not. So let's work together to figure out if this is the space you need to be in. Do you need to just call it quits and not have an office space anymore? Or how can we help you get to a point that makes sense for you? So yeah, it's an interesting time right now where we have people in our industry, the contractors who do tenant build outs for us, the office furniture people, the designers, all those groups, we all kind of share what we're seeing in the market. And it's really just people who want to have an office space and they want it to feel good to their employees. And
Right.
how do we make that happen?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense too, that you would collaborate with those folks because it all benefits you all, right? When you get office space, you have a referral, just like a cleaning company or insurance company, everyone kind of works together to facilitate the landlord. Yeah. And fun fact, and I'm sure you know this as well. So I was reminded of the Virginia pilot article back in 2022, where they referenced, I think it was just vacancy rates in town center. It went down like 1%. Like, we actually gained more businesses than we did lost in town center, which if that doesn't speak to the insulation of the economy and market here, landlords, you're missing out. Investors, you're missing out. I mean, Lego's here now. Bath and Body Works have moved in. We have the whole, and I tell all my Facebook friends this too, all my folks that are looking to retire to Florida. And I'm like, it's too hot. Come to Virginia Beach. We have a whole slew of retirement facilities just across from town center throughout the area to really facilitate, a life with tons of amenities and hopefully more walkability. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if you have anything to do with that, Nicole, but maybe more walkability might be nice too.
No, that's absolutely right. People are looking for that. And so I think it's just a matter of developers figuring out how can we make sure that we tap into it, because we all experienced a time, as bad as things were during the pandemic, I think, got to experience something that maybe we never would have before in our lives, where it's having some flexibility, being able to get outside and be away from people, but just even getting outside a lot of times during your workday, that I think made people realize, okay, I need to have this. If I'm going to be back in the office and I'm going back to work, I need to have some ability to get out and just walk around and not have to get in my car and not have the commute or whatever the case is. So I think people who are able to tap into that, we call it a flight to quality. And
Yeah.
so town center specifically is the quality for our area. And so people are you're right. I mean, the vacancy rates are still exactly where they were. I don't think they have maybe just a few spaces available here, and it's just growing like crazy. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Nicole, it's been a great conversation. I know we have a hard fast deadline at 3:00, so I want to be respectful of your time. With that said, Nicole, I'd love to hear from you and Divaris and your team. Community is a big part of this podcast and the Facebook group, and of course, just how we live and vibe here in the Virginia Beach area. I'd love to know for you and your team, what aspects of the community have influenced the way in which you conduct your business and how you operate it here in the area.
oh, that's a good question. Well, I can speak for myself specifically, and the community here that I have been involved in that's affected me most in just business and across all the board is the soccer community. So my youngest son plays soccer and has forever, and watching him grow up do that, and then having the facilities that we do here, which the Hampton Road Soccer Complex is just the most amazing complex on the East Coast. Having that, and then seeing other grassroots soccer things pop up. There's a group called oh, I'm gonna have to look it up and get back to you, because there's a nonprofit that's in town that goes and has little soccer things around in different apartment
Oh
complexes,
yeah,
that they
yeah.
have like pickup stuff, and it's just like knowing that we have a way that we can have kids and adults stay active, and then it turns into almost a family, right? Like my son has grown up with these kids. I started playing soccer recently at the field house, which is another great place that we have in town. I'm not going to say I'm good at all, but it's created like another little family for me. And so just having that has made me feel like this is a place that we're never leaving. There's so many great things about our area, but for us, my family specifically, soccer has been huge. So
Love
I
it.
don't, if you guys, are you familiar with that we even have, do you know about VB United? Our
I have had a few members of our Facebook community reach out to me about that. I haven't gotten any specifics, but it seems that there are more sportsplexes and outdoor activities geared more towards soccer that have really popped up within the past, I think, 5 to 10 years. And it's just becoming more common now that we're anti-lockdown and more out and about in the community. But yeah, any information, feel free to send it over. I'll include it in the show notes along with your information as well, Nicole. That way folks can check out everything you have going on and your super sleek website. I was just like staring at that for like 20 minutes. I was like, how do I get this font here?
I'll tell our marketing department that it's on point.
It is on point. It is on point. Well, Nicole, that brings us into our last section here, rapid fire questions. These questions are quick and fast. You can answer with as much or as little information as you like. Are you ready?
Yes.
Do you prefer indoor or beach soccer? And when I say indoor, I'll just say facility soccer.
Indoor.
Favorite spot to visit here in the Virginia Beach area?
The beach.
Which beach, Nicole? There's 10.
Sandbridge, sorry.
Sandbridge. Love it. Love it. One word to describe the Virginia Beach commercial real estate market.
Steady.
That's what we like to hear. Are you more of an early bird or night owl in your
business? Night owl, no question.
And do you prefer coffee or tea during working hours?
Oh,
love it.
All the time.
Is there a book or author that has influenced you personally or professionally in any manner?
Yes. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book.
Classic. Dream vacation destination. If you could go anywhere in the world to visit, where would you go?
So what is it in Italy? Is it the Amalfi Coast, I think is what it's called?
Oh, I don't know,
I think,
but Italy's a great pick.
yeah, Italy in the summertime would be great.
Love it. Last one for you. Advice you'd give to someone starting off in commercial real estate, aside from the simple fact of giving you a call, signing up for an internship, and joining your team. What other piece of advice would you give them?
Getting out there, getting yourself visible is huge. People have to know who you are and what you do.
Perfect. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been a great time chatting with you about real estate. And of course, I'd love to roll out the red carpet for you. This is your opportunity to highlight any final words, any lasting thoughts you want to leave leave in the memories of our listeners. The floor is all yours.
I'll just say, of all the places I've ever been in the world, because we've traveled a lot in our military careers. I'm from Texas. My husband's from Michigan. We've been all over. Virginia Beach, when we got here, we knew we were never leaving. And this is just the most amazing place. My youngest has grown up here essentially. And the fact that we got as lucky as we did, I can't believe it. We've been really blessed to be able to be here. And I don't know. I can't even say how great this place is. So if anybody ever has any questions about why in the world you should be here, the lists are endless, and this is the most amazing place ever.
100% agree. You hear that, Buc-ee's? You hear that? If Buc-ee's is listening,
yes, come here.
Virginia Beach. I don't know why you went up to Jamestown, Williamsburg. That was kind of silly, but Virginia Beach is where it's at. Well, Nicole, thank you again. And of course, thank you to our dedicated listeners for checking out another episode of Discover Virginia Beach podcast. We hope we found some value or at least some entertainment here in this episode today. Definitely go and check out everything Nicole's got going on down in her business in the link in the description below. And we'll see you all in another episode very soon.